where do we want to go next? We want to talk about the history. What were the things that Ron had discovered and then you then have learned from Ron to say, why does this work? Because, I'll tell you, speaking to a tax attorney, speaking to a CPA, this was not, they both looked at me like I had 5 eyes on or 7 heads, like I was nuts. And so you have gone down this road and looked at the IRS codes and talked to Ron a ton to be able to pull this together, because it is not what, it's real simple to say $10 million sale without capital gains and a $1 purchase. And I know, you're not $1 transition to make all this stuff happen.
Right.
And that's nirvana for most business owners. And it's in the tax code. And so that's one of the things that I think is so unique, is that one of the specialties that us geeky Sage Mark Lincoln guys, that have been around because of, Connecticut General, all the way back through, we dig into those things and we like to find, where's the arbitrage in the tax code to be able to put these things together. So share with us the history of this.
Well, Ron Clausen figured out that the beauty of the Popeye Plan rests in the differential between the 1954 IRS code and the 1986 creation of I think it's Title 26, which is the S corporation rules. Okay. So he was really prescient in terms of understanding how an S corporation environment could really impact the transition of or the redemption rather of a shareholder's interest. So it's probably not worthwhile going down the rabbit hole of 302B2 and 17 or 1368 and all that other kind of mess. But suffice it to say, I've been down that rabbit hole with Ron. And he's one of these guys that is really, really good when he does seminars at making something that is unbelievably technical seem really, really simple, which is what I've just tried to do.
Sure.
And the fundamental thing I think you need to recognize here is A, you have to have an S corp to be able to do this transaction. Okay. But just because you don't have an S corp doesn't solve the problem. We've converted C corps to S's. We've converted partnerships to S corporations and everything in between. And the more and more we learn about that, the easier it becomes to not step on all the bombs and the like. I will tell you that when I first got involved in a series of really detailed conversations with Ron, because I'm what my staff calls an analytical. And, I think, we say that jokingly here, but being anal is something that I don't take negatively, because in our world, as you suggested, the devil's in the details. So if you understand the interplay between the historical sections of the code that deal with redemptions, which are largely promulgated in the 54 code as it related to C corporations. And then you understand how the overlay of S corporations on top of that allowed for an S corporation to essentially, in the right set of circumstances, redeem a shareholder's interest without the imposition of a capital gain. That's the beauty of the transaction. So what you're trying to do is, at its core, something that is highly counterintuitive. And when I sat down with my local attorney, who is also a client and a strategic partner of mine, and said, hey, I've been having these conversations with Ron Clausen, and I think I got it, okay? And it's brilliant, but I want your opinion. And he took it. He's a tax attorney, as well as an estate planning attorney, as well as a business attorney. And he brought one of his senior partners in, and they took a look at this thing. And their first reaction was, I don't know. But then they started digging, and it was like all of a sudden the light bulb went on. And that's usually what happens with advisors. So the idea here fundamentally is when you have an S Corp, you only have one level of taxation, right? And so, you're going to earn income in a year, and you're going to pay tax on it. And you're going to have an increase in your AAA account as a result of whatever it is that you have after tax. And you can do any number of things with that. And one of the things you could do is distribute it as a dividend. And dividends have to be pro rata. So everybody that's a shareholder has to get a dividend based on ownership. Or you can use it to redeem shares. And the code allows it to be redeemed on a non pro rata basis. Okay. So you don't have to do that stuff pro rata. So that is essentially what we're talking about. And as long as you keep the redemptions to that year's increase in the AAA account, which you've already paid tax on, then there's no need to have another layer of tax vis-a-vis the capital gains tax, because in that situation, it becomes entirely voluntary. And the final piece is you have typically in a transaction like this, you have the classic definition is a buyer and a seller. Okay. And so it would be if I'm the seller and you're the buyer, we have this taxable event. But in the Popeye plan, because we have an S corporation and we have a next generation owner, what happens is the redemption occurs between the existing owner and the entity, in this case, the corporation. And all we do is bring the next generation owner into the capital structure by selling them at some point some share. And so if the share costs, we recapitalize the corporation or structure it in such a way that all shares are $1, I can sell a share to the next generation owner for $1. That transaction is a capital transaction between the corporation and the shareholder. Okay, but I'm not involved in it. And then all my redemptions are handled on an annual basis by increases in my AAA account up to that. And so I'm redeeming shares, which I can do disproportionately because the code allows it. And so over time, I'm redeemed out with the annual increases in AAA. And then the only person owning the stock in the corporation after all of mine have been redeemed out is the key person or the family member. And they now own the corporation because it's the only outstanding share for which they've paid $1 for it. And I got my whole value out without the imposition of a capital gains. And that's how it works in technical work.
I love it. So I want to see if I can repeat it back to you again, because I think it's important for people you need to hear something like this twice.
Yeah, so, no, it's counterintuitive, right?
Yeah. So I've got, a $10 million business. Okay. Right now I've got 100 shares because I'm the sole owner. It really didn't matter in what I was doing. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I want my son to get this business, and Lord knows he doesn't have the money to make this thing work. And he's not going to go out and be able to get a loan for $10 million, but he's been working with me for 15 or 20 years now. And he's pretty, he's done great. He's got a nice lifestyle, but he doesn't have $10 million or the wherewithal to make that happen. And I know he could do this.
Right, but let me just intercede. In that particular situation, what is absolutely a condition precedent to the sale is that you also, Michael, need the $10 million to maintain your lifestyle. So gifting the family business is not on the table for that very reason.